I'm Brit and welcome to this week's free image review at BPSOP. I teach Celebrate Your Life in Beautiful Images and Amazing Travel Photos Made Easy. So let's get started. These are the 5 images that we're going to be looking at this week, and the one thing that I wanted to preface this review with is as photographers, we tend to want to get that one amazing shot rather than a series of shots. So what I would like to encourage you to think about is to start shooting in series and think about the story. And that's something, story is something that we look at in all the classes that I teach, and also how to capture a series of images that tie together. All right, let's get started. We begin with this image called Looking Glass Zoom by Jim Wood. It was shot in Robin Hill Park in Sikkim, Washington, early one morning, and when he came across a stand of Western red cedars, and basically he zoomed in while exposing, and he got this really great shot. So Jim, there isn't really a whole lot that I can offer you on this because I think your shot is fantastic. It really gives a sense of this fairy tale kind of romantic feeling. It feels very lush, and it feels quite serene. So one thing you might play with, if you wanted to, is to play with contrast. If you wanted to maybe pull your darks down a little bit and maybe lighten some of your lights to give a wider range, if you will, between light and dark. That's just something you might play with separately. But otherwise, there isn't really anything that I would do. I think it's really fantastic. And I do encourage you to think about how else you might capture these trees besides using the zoom during exposure trick. It's a really fun trick, but I'm sure there are a lot of really amazing images that you can also get in this wonderful walk that you took. And so I do encourage you to check out my classes because that's the kind of thing that we look into. But really, really nice job. The next image that we're going to look at is Mandrel by Steve Feldman. And he did not include any details or metadata or anything about this image, so we're just going to look at it in general. Steve, gorgeous capture. I don't know if you got this whole thing in camera or if this is just a crop from a larger image, but you clearly have a sense of storytelling, just in the sense of how you framed the animal, how you've got his head pushed out of the top of the frame. He's also going out the side and the bottom, and just his beard is lightly grazing the bottom of the frame. And then we've got a wee bit of negative space here on the left and a hint of it at the right corner. Just, it's really glorious. I don't know if these are the real colors of what these look like. I've never seen one, so I'm not sure. The colors do seem a bit saturated to me, but maybe that's just my computer. But for me, the most important aspect of an image is emotional content, and I think you totally got it. I think you did a fantastic job on this. I love that I can see the whiskers, the hairs on his mouth, or her, as the case may be, a lot of detail. So I think that's a really fantastic thing. And another thing that you may or may not consider, and I don't know if it's just because of the upload, but you might also play a little bit with your contrast to get your darks a little darker. And I don't know that necessarily the lights need to be lighter, but just see if you can maybe create a little bit more texture and definition in the fur. And just subtly. I wouldn't go really heavy on it, regardless. But glorious capture. My compliments to you. This next image is by Richard Shandris, and it's called Logan Landing. And so this was captured from the plane just before touchdown, mid-afternoon on a gray Boston day. And he really enjoyed, he loves the landing with Bunker Hill Monument and the sights, and he wanted to capture that feeling. He also shares that because this is a fairly small crop out of the larger photo, I treated it for contrast and sharpness because it was too soft and dull originally. And it is just a bit of posterized nature that I really like in combination with the black and white. I also really enjoy the wide variety of tones and lines arranged in such a man-made manner. Beautifully done, Richard. There isn't anything that I would actually change or suggest. I really like your crop, by the way. I like how you really draw the eye in. You're really drawing my eye here to the center portion. First thing I notice is the Hyatt Hotel. I don't notice the bunker so much, but I love this here. I'm assuming that's the water, and it's just kind of like, just by virtue of landing, that you get kind of a long exposure look, which just, for me, makes it kind of interesting. I think it's a really interesting image, and this is going to be very quick because there isn't anything that I would really suggest to change. I generally look at emotional content, and I generally look at composition more so than post-processing. I do wonder if, for example, I'm looking at your whites, and your whites on my screen look very white and crisp. I'm not noticing a whole lot of true black. And so you might want to just check your histogram and see if you did get a little bit of true black. It's possible that this business here at the end of the runway, that might be true black. But if that's the case, then you can just ignore my comment. But I'm just noticing a lot of really punchy whites. And so that is the only question I have for you, since the rest of it is largely gray. But beautiful capture, and especially because you were actually in the plane. And so, well done. This brings us to County Fair by Trini Malapit II. This is a 2-second long exposure of a local county fair ride. I love this image. Absolutely love your image, Trini. It's just fun. I think that was totally the right way to capture this. I mean, not that there's a wrong way, but your 2-second exposure was perfect. It really just shows off the lights and the funness of how this ride goes. Also, I really like the sky, and I don't know if this is just on my screen. There's this one little speck here, and it's possible that it's a star, but it could also be just something on my screen. But beautiful capture, really nice. And what you might consider doing is, there's a bit of light here in your sky. You may or may not, if you're interested in post-processing, you may or may not clone the darker area so that the sky is maybe a little bit more even, so that it really sets off the ride, just because this area on the right does distract me a little bit. Then again, if you want to keep it more realistic, then leave it in. So it really comes down to which way you would like to take this artistically. If you want to keep it more realistic, or if you want to go more of a fine art direction. But really nice. I'm assuming this is a crop, but really nice crop. I really like what you did and what you've got in and out of frame. Also that you have some people here, which really helps to show a sense of scale. So really nicely done. This brings us to On the Hunt in Utila by Sandy Holst. This is taken with a Nikon D7000 at f8, ISO 200, and 1/500th of a second. And so she writes, I was on the island of Utila, sitting on our back porch, which itself was overlooking a lovely swamp area that was amazing for wild birds to hunt. I quietly sat for over an hour, and the birds came closer to me while they hunted for fish, as they didn't know I was there. I think you may tell me I cropped too close on my edges. I cannot find my original to see if this was in camera or a Photoshop crop. I actually think it was in camera. What I wanted to do with this picture was to make it look a little more about fine art. So I turned it into a black and white, added a texture for the background, and did a little oil painting in Photoshop. Nicely done. And I do agree about the crop. So I did want to, the thing that I love about this is the feathers and this This is very fine art to me. I'm not a fine art photographer myself, but I've looked at a fair amount. And for me, just the lines and the contrast here is really nice. And so I don't know if it's possible to go a little bit further if you wanted to try, but regardless, it's gorgeous the way it is now. So what I did want to look at was just, and you've got it in color as well. I personally prefer the black and white because I feel, for me personally, that the color background in the color version just distracts a bit from the bird. But that's me. If you show this image to 5 people, I'm sure you'll get 5 different responses. So I just wanted to look at the black and white for now. And so what I've done is I've just kind of mocked up a background here, and you can see your original image. And so what I wanted to suggest were just perhaps to play, if indeed this was not if your image was not the in-camera version, but was maybe part of a larger image, just wanted to show how just by having all this wonderful negative space, how it would just bring your eye so much quicker to the bird's head. So just imagine that these, this outline here, the drop shadow, is not in the image. So if possible, to not have him quite so cropped, go see if you still have the original file, because you could do a lot of wonderful things with this. And just by how you have the image cropped, whether it's a square or a vertical or a horizontal rectangle, or even, for example, if you were to go 16 by 9, for example, a little bit wider, it just changes the story, because the whole thing is this beautiful bird in this big open space. How do you want to draw the eye to it, if that makes any sense? I think it's a really pretty image. And as you can see, square doesn't quite do it justice, but maybe you like it or maybe not. So it just changes the whole look and feel of the image. But regardless, glorious capture. So I encourage you to see what other shots you have from this trip. Maybe you've got some other images that you could create a series out of it. So I hope to see you in my classes if that speaks to you. So there you have it. It's not your traditional image review, but this is how I work with students in my class. We look heavily at composition and story. So I hope to see you in class. Bye.